Lee, I've known you over the years, just socially, just from various events that we've been at, but I've always appreciated your straight talk and just any engagement that we've ever had. I've just always appreciated your communication style. And so with that, I know who you are, and you have this unique perspective that I think you bring to the table. But can you tell me a little bit about your journey to Guam? And I'm sure everybody knows you as the former editor-in-chief publisher with Gannett, Pacific Daily News, for how many years, Lee?
I want to say 24, 25 years I was publisher. Also ran USA Today for all of Asia from 85 to 90. And then I was president and publisher of the Honolulu Advertiser from 2000. When I left Guam, I went to Hawaii, and I did that from 2007 to mid-2010, late summer.
Okay. And that's really, I can't imagine regionally, just from your time with USA Today during the time where, the boom was happening from
right.
Asia, to your time in Guam, all the throughput there, to, your exit, and just from afar, from Hawaii with the Honolulu Advertiser, just seeing the evolution and the dichotomy of two different places really that have been pushed and developed as a function of the presence of the military and the various economic factors around tourism. So can you tell me about how you got here and your journey on Guam as a publisher of PDN?
Okay. I'll just back up a little bit to what you just said. And Guam is Hawaii's like Guam on steroids. It's just bigger, but the issues are identical.
Mm-hmm.
On how I got here, I was medevaced here from Vietnam in 1968. I was a patient at Naval Hospital, and then I was stationed at Naval Hospital. And I actually got out of the Navy here. Married my wife. Well, I married my wife when I was still in the Navy. And basically lived here ever since. I walked out of the back door of the Navy and into the front door of the Daily News. I was raised in the newspaper business on the logistical side and on the printing side. I ran offset presses. I did circulation. I did a whole bunch of collections and things like that. So when I went to the Daily News, they had a weakness in that area. And so at the time, the publisher, a fellow by the name of Bob Udick, who was a really good guy, he asked me, and we were sitting in his office one day just joking, and he said, "What would you like to do?" I said, "Well, I can help increase the circulation of the paper." And he said, "Well, what do you want to do longer term?" And I looked at him and I said, "I want your job." And he started laughing. I said, "It's not funny. I'm serious."
Right.
And I think he actually worked with me in his own way to help me accomplish that. And I'm grateful to him for his tutelage and his care in that, because I ended up, I started in 70.
Okay.
And June of 70, or June of 70. And then, February of 70. I'm going to think here. No, you're right. June 70. My brain's old. June of 70. And it was 13 years later that I became publisher.
Okay.
And then in 2007, they moved me to Honolulu to be president publisher of the Honolulu Advertiser. And then between that, from 1985 to 1990, we actually, the folks I was working with, was a small team, and we actually did the first publication of USA Today outside of the United States on October 8th, 1985 in Singapore.
Oh, okay.
Which was really interesting.
Yeah.
And then I started with 8 countries, ended up with 26. I was on the road all the time. It was terrible. I was never here.
Well, that's interesting too, because, Singapore is often mentioned as a model of like how we should develop, in a lot of ways in terms of the economically and in terms of housing,
mm-hmm.
right? So Tell me about that. Tell me about what that perspective has brought you relative to what you see going on here today on Guam.
There's a huge difference in the leadership of Singapore and the leadership of Guam.
Okay.
Vast difference in abilities. And I think rooted desires. I don't think, unless the vast majority of leadership and key leadership positions here change, Guam's not going to be a Singapore.
Okay. Well, so let's speak to that, right? Because to a degree, where you have an organization that's siloed and it doesn't have unity of mission, that's where you have your issues. What you're saying is there's more unity of mission and vision and focus, or is it just capacity and ability?
I think it's a combination of all of them. It's also Singapore's governmental system is different from the standpoint that, like, when I was working in Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew was in charge. And he was literally in charge. There was no arguing with him. Okay. And I think that, from a leadership standpoint, he was an amazing leader. He really was. And quite frankly, when we printed our first edition, we actually timed that to the time, it was October 8th, and the day before he spoke to Congress in the United States. So we timed it so that his picture would be on the front cover of the first copy of USA Today that was printed in Singapore.
Nice. Okay.
So, there's a little bit of cosmetology that goes with this,
right?
Like all business. But I think that like in Singapore, you didn't chew gum. You didn't spit in the sidewalk. There's lots of things you didn't do because you got caned or you went to jail.
Okay. Right. You move the machine differently there.
Yes.
Right. And there's a different standard.
There's a different type of machine.
Okay. Okay.
That machine in Singapore, I haven't been there in years, but when I was there, was designed specifically to move Singapore forward as cleanly and as rapidly as they could. And that doesn't happen here.
Okay, so what's
either the cleanly or the rapid.
Well, let's look at the machine then, right? And let's look at the system and how it's built. Because for me, the one organization that doesn't make sense the way it's structured is legislature, right? And that's because I don't understand who a senator stands up for and is accountable to. And
they're not districted.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so your loyalties can consistently and constantly shift from whatever
as a senator, you're talking.
Correct.
Yeah.
Whatever places the warmest at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And you can
just shift.
You can watch
and fold. Right. But so with that, tell me about the systems that are in place on the leadership side like that allows these issues to persevere and continue.
In the present form, sure. But there's no direct responsibility.
Right.
So with no direct responsibility, you can wander all over the place and claim no responsibility and full responsibility or credit for things that you get away from being responsible for, and taking credit for things that you really didn't do.
But
and the system is designed to protect the people who are elected in that manner, and the citizenry, my opinion, doesn't care. If they did, they'd force change.
Right. And I would say the not care is not the thing. It's more apathy and acceptance. It's mindset to a degree.
What's apathy?
Just the willingness to accept what always has come without question. I don't care because I can't make a difference.
No, you just said it. I don't care.
Okay.
And you know, what we talked about before, I mean, nobody likes to tell people they don't care because it's an affront, but it's fact. And if they cared, they wouldn't tolerate the behavior of some of these political.
Well, I care in as much as it affects me. That's the thing. I don't know that there's a willingness to stand up for everybody else, right? But if it affects me and it affects enough people where I think I can align with this to my benefit, then I might go with that.
There's too much of if I can align with my benefit and not enough of can I align with the benefit of the vast majority of Guam. In other words, am I doing what is best for the vast majority of the people of Guam if I am a politician? And the answer is simple. They don't.
So, but
they tell you they are.
No, but in the scheme of things, right? Fixing the way the legislature or the way the legislature is elected and districted, right, seems to be like a small thing.
That's a big thing.
Is it? No, tell me why. Tell me why.
Because they're not responsible for any particular area of Guam. If you said, okay, you have 15 senators, come up with districts based on population, you may go to Dedido and say, well, we need 3 Dedido senators because of the population, and then Jigo gets 3, and maybe Amatic only gets 1 or whatever, but design it in a way that it mirrors the population base and the importance of relative geography, like Tuman and places like that.
Sure. No, but why are we the way we are now? Like, why do we have...
Because the senators won't change it because they know then they have to work.
But how do we get here? How do we get to the mayors being responsible for the villages and the legislature being free agents, not attached to any villages? Is that a function of the Organic Act or?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't have an answer for you.
Okay.
As long, I'm trying to think way back. At one point in time, and I don't remember the exact dates, we had a part-time legislature.
This is 60s, 50s, 70s.
Or, I don't know. I just know it was here.
Okay.
And we moved to try to get a part-time legislature too, because one of the biggest problems with all of Micronesia, including Guam, is that the United States government, at the end of the trusteeship agreement, and when the United States government was out here under the UN trusteeship agreement, they set up all the governments like Washington.
Okay.
Which was totally crazy because there's way too much government. It's unnecessary.
Right.
Don't need it. But they set it up that way. Everybody bought into it, at least from a majority standpoint, because that changed. And they continue to buy into it now, I think, because it's financially and power-based good for people who are in politics to keep it that way, because they hold the power base and the government coffers. So, and unfortunately, you got generations of people who grew up with it. Right. And so they really don't know anything else. So in order to change that, it would be pretty much a titanic change.
Well, so like
or tectonic,
right? Tectonic shift. But like some things like GRT, right? We run GRT versus like a VAT, like a value add.
We should get rid of it.
I agree.
Because it's a multi-level tax.
Agreed. But it seems like everybody wants it.
Everybody doesn't want it.
Right, but why wouldn't you? Well, I guess maybe the people...
Because you don't want to get...
You don't want to pay tax, right? Yeah, no, I understand.
That's why.
But the system is so efficient, right? We accept it. But
it's not efficient.
Okay.
The system is inefficient. The system is wasteful.
No, I'm not saying our system is so efficient. I'm saying a different system would be so efficient. The system that we use is inefficient, GRT.
Well, what it would do is if you made the changes, it would force, and I will not use the word leaders, I will use political appointees. It would force them to have more responsibility. And I don't think they want that.
Well, just seeing, the position of some of the appointees, it's not just necessarily their willingness to or desire to change. It's having buy-in from the team behind them.
Well, no one educates the community on what the differences would be for the community as a whole if you made those changes. They're pretty drastic changes, but if you made them, what are the benefits to the community? What are the hardships on people wanting to get elected to public office? Would you then get a different group of people?
Yeah. Well, and I agree. And I think, with the election coming, we have to define what that is, right? And I'm interested in defining what these structures are that we don't want to perpetuate, what these structures are that we should say, we don't accept this anymore. So if you had to point to one or two things, like what do you think?
District senators.
Okay. And I agree with you. I think
based on population base.
So what would happen? Would the mayors go away? Because the mayors do a lot.
Yeah, I know.
Right. And those guys are accountable because they face their constituents on a daily basis.
There have been discussions about getting rid of the senators and keeping the mayors.
But why couldn't the senators fall under that districting and that?
Well, they can.
I mean, there's 18.
They can, but you're trying to get the people at the feed bowl not to eat.
Okay.
By asking them to do that.
Well, what if I did it by petition, right? What do they call it when you?
What if you put it on the ballot?
That's what I mean. So you write the law as
you got to go out and get the signatures and put that change on the ballot.
Yes,
that's the only way you're going to get it done.
There's a name for that process. Do you recall?
And I'm trying to think of it. When you were talking about it, I'm sitting here going, "What's the word?"
I know. I'm just like I lose it, right? Research. You got to put it up on the screen.
Yeah,
as a graphic.
Find the magic word.
Anyway, so this is the word. So whatever this.
But it's if you districted leadership, whether that leadership was the mayors or whether it was the senators, I think if you had it being senators, you should have 2 45-day sessions and part-time senators, and they get paid $50 a session, and that's the end of it. They do law in one session and they do budget in another session.
Not even compensationally, but I agree.
There's a lot of people, including me. I would run for the legislature if it was part-time.
No, and that's the thing. So you treat it like a bank board, right? Like there's a place for that legislative body to ideate and be like the think lab and come up with things like, in a lot of ways like the chamber functions, right? All these like-minded people kind of come together and decide policy, right?
Yeah.
But these guys are elected on a different scale, right?
In a different way.
Right, in a different way. So with that, now you have legislative body that's actually accountable to its constituents in a way that makes sense in terms of benefit.
Well, they're actually accountable. Right now, they're not.
Exactly. And I just don't know how a function like that.
And they know it, and they run it for all it's worth.
No, and I'm not going to say that, right?
I know I will.
I'm not going to say. No, but because some of these people I supported as well, right? These people that are in office, I vote. Right. So some of the people that are in office, I supported.
As did I.
Those decisions because you choose like the best candidate that's in front of you. Yeah. Right. Because no choice is not.
You have 15 and vote for 3. That's all right.
Yeah. You can't split the vote. Right. You got to make sure and that in itself is flawed. Right. Because I have to strategize who I'm going to vote for. Yeah. Who are the top vote getters going to be and who are the new guys.
And in what party do they belong?
Exactly.
Yeah. So
that is maddening to me. Just even the primary system, all the things that we do and that we never question. So in terms of...
it's kind of like brushing your teeth. Why do you go this way?
Right, but, I can go to ChatGPT and I can, come up with legislation, right? And then I can get an attorney to donate their time to clean it up, right? And then I can take it to the people with my platform and I can say, hey, this is the change that we've proposed. Can you sign up for that? But I've always heard that's a road to nowhere. And like the gamblers tried to do it, right? When they were trying to do, they threw a lot of money at it, right? And they didn't make it.
I think there's a basic heart in people in Guam, whether they be Chamorro or Filipino or whatever. But I think there's a heart for people. They want things to work. They want them to work efficiently. Deep down inside, I think they do. They want honesty. But as a whole, they have been, for lack of a better term, trained, taught. This is the way it works.
And it's always been that way.
Well, it hasn't always been exactly that way. It's just leaned heavily in that direction over the years.
But it's a pervasive mindset. Who am I to change this? It's always been, right? And who am I to question?
Most people don't want to stand up and say, enough.
But it's that colonial mindset, if you think about it, right?
In some ways, yeah. It's if you go through Micronesia, all of the Micronesian governments were set up by Washington. They're all disasters. Huge monsters that can't figure out why do they have all those people.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense. You have 30-some thousand people and you have governors and a president and legislature and high chiefs. And you go down the list, everybody's working for the government.
Right. And so I believe that you're right, that there's too much government.
Yes, there is.
There's the structures that we've adopted just don't work for how we're operating. And Lee, across the board, this is the common thread that I keep finding. It's you can't solve the problem if you allow the existing systems perpetuate.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
That's true.
By you accepting that, there is nothing that you can do on the policy level that is going to make any difference because the systems are broken. So you have to change the systems and the structure.
I wouldn't go that far. I think you can make changes that will eventually end up making changes in the system and the structure. But if you step out to make those changes, there is a whole crowd of detractors out there who will make you look bad and say you're ruining things and people are going to lose jobs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. But that's the thing. We are at a time where we can control the narrative just as effectively as anybody, right? You could sway it with the right. So it's just like, so ultimately we decide, right?
You're saying we being the people.
The people. If the people come together and decide that you effectuate change and someone steps forward and puts a vehicle to do that, right, then it can happen. But again, what does that look like and where's the buy-in, right? Everybody has to believe it's going to work.
Getting the collective we moving.
Right. Yeah. So we're back to that, right? We're back to what do you think that's going to change? And the districting is one thing, right? What else?
Districting would make a difference.
Sure.
I think if you could get the system to punish openly criminality rather than throw a blanket on it.
Okay.
Or a wet blanket. I think that would make a huge difference. I think if you could enforce a strict and strong ethics group in the government, and if somebody has an ethical violation and you have to divide it by severity, but they really need to be punished and they need to be out of government, never to return.
I mean, the white collar crime issue. You want to.
Yeah, white collar crime.
Right.
Yeah. Ethical crime.
Correct. So corruption in government is a significant issue that you see that needs to get cleaned up. So you think
it is
to go harder at that?
I think if you just Simon Sanchez comes to mind, and that place has been since 2013 they've been trying to do that, and the school was horrible then.
Right.
And it just drags, and nobody digs their heels in and says fix it.
But there has to be a penalty for procurement. Like
well, the whole procurement system in the government of Guam's crazy.
sure. So
Needs to be simplified and have very strict ethical standards and penalties applied to violation.
right. So the leadership structure is messed up because the leaders aren't accountable to anyone, and can shift their fiefdoms depending on where the money is, depending on where
The way the system's set up, the only people whose leadership is responsible for are the people who voted them into office. And the people who voted them into office collectively lean on them for all sorts of benefits.
Sure.
And there's a big food wagon running around, not literally food, but money. And people will turn a blind eye towards bad behavior, and as long as the flow of services keep going. It's when the flow of services stop, then you'll have a bit of a rebellion.
Well, that's what's happened. The flow of services to a degree have stopped. The financing has stopped. The delivery of services is getting, is diminishing, consistently over time. And part of that too is the workforce.
What services have diminished?
Well, the medical, law enforcement, the roads, anything infrastructure,
Okay.
sewer, water.
Yeah, little pieces here and there.
Sure. Like it's not. I mean, it's not falling apart, but I mean, it's definitely not operating at efficiency. I mean, we're moving forward. But, you just look and you see the pile getting bigger and bigger of all the problems kind of stacking up that you're not addressing, and you're not doing anything that's really. So, as an example, right? They're still taking paper-based applications in some of the agencies, and someone has to convert that digital, and then that standard data entry is an issue. Right? It'd be very simple to onboard that electronically, but it's just no one's done it, and it's just
doesn't take as many people.
It wouldn't take as many people, but I'm just kind of
that's a big reason why it doesn't get fixed.
Right, but I don't know that you attack problems at scale like that, because there's a lot of people who don't want to do that. They don't want to do the manual entry. You can't throw people because no one wants to sign up for that job, because no one wants to do that for what's being offered economically versus what the benefit is for not working.
But I think if the government were more efficient in what it does and how it does it, I don't think the cost of living would be as egregious as it is.
Oh, sure.
Well, so why don't the people who are elected and appointed fix it?
I mean, it's to their benefit to consistently perpetuate the existing system, right?
Because they wouldn't need as many people.
Okay.
So would they be walking themselves out of jobs if they made it better?
I don't know, right? I don't know that you can say that. I don't know that you can.
Well, you can say it. I don't know that you can prove it. No, I think you could. If you really got down to it.
At the root of everything, just from an economic standpoint, it shifts one place to the other. So if you lose your workforce here, there's retraining, there's shifting, there's stuff that happens.
Well, something new would come up.
Yeah, for
to
sure.
Replace it so that they'd have to shift. But how many people want to shift? Right. I mean, if you look at what's happening, just like walk into McDonald's, there's nobody taking your order. You go, and there's a number flashes up on the screen, and you stand there and stare at it. And after a while, they call your number, and you go get your stuff, and you walk out.
Mm-hmm.
Government can do that.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely we can skill up, right? But so, what do you think? So we have procurement, right?
There's no incentive to do that.
Districting, zero incentive, but I do think there are people who are desirous of change, right? And would do something to make that change happen.
I think if it was presented properly to people in a way that wasn't feared by the people,
mm-hmm.
in a way that kept them relatively whole during the process, even to the point of retraining them to do something else and showing them how easy that would be, I think it could get done. I really do. And you initially get some pushback. You always do.
Mm-hmm.
But I can think of numerous times during my career where we went through significant change. We went from hot lead to, to negatives and plates, and then we went to literally computerized typesetting, and that was it. And then all these people who were in between eventually disappeared.
Yeah.
I know there were times when we did, in my career, we did layoffs and said, okay, these people, here's an offer, take this offer, and you get, for the sake of this discussion, 26 weeks of pay plus helping getting a new job and et cetera. And then people took it, and then other people said, no, I don't have to do that because, and they had a reason, or someone convinced them they had a reason. And so they had to take the next one, right? And the next one was not 26, but 13 weeks.
Right. Diminishes.
And it was diminishing returns. And the last one was like 8 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And then the people at the 8 weeks says, well, why didn't you tell me about this? And I said, well, I can't talk to you about it, but I suggested that you do the first one, and you chose not to for whatever reason. It's not my fault. I didn't tell you to do that. I suggested you do the first one. So it's that kind of thing. And then there's always a reluctance of people within the system who tell them, don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, it's not going to happen or whatever. And that could be done in government. And government could be resized, reshaped a bit. And I think from my perspective, in that vein, the singular largest piece in that puzzle is enforcement.
Okay. So, Lee, you're the
follow through and follow up.
No. But so for you, I'm going to empower you for the purposes of our
Thank you.
Because I have the supreme authority, right? But so now you can do whatever you want, right? You're the supreme leader, right? Or benevolent leader. I need you to come up
for benevolent.
Yeah, I come up with a system and structure that's gonna set us up for success moving forward. What should the leadership structure look like? What should procurement look like? What should our economy incentivize? Do you think the third leg's coming back, tourism? If not, like, how should we position ourselves? Tell me what you would do to fix everything. Lay it out for me.
I don't have a wand.
I know you don't have a wand, but again, the reason why I asked you on here is for your perspective, because I would think someone that's been on Guam for as long as you have and is informed as you and has the perspective that you have would have some solid and tangible ideas on how they would step in and clean everything up, right?
The first thing I think I would do would be hold all the leadership 100% responsible.
Okay, what does that
no,
look like?
No ifs, ands, or buts.
What does that look like?
Well, number one, you'd have to have, for lack of a better term, a think tank.
Okay.
And that think tank would look at what exists and what would be the best form to shift that into, to reposture it and move it in a direction that was more efficient and more effective. And not necessarily less expensive, but smaller.
Okay. So think tank, but theoretically, is a think tank the legislature in this? Is that where the lawmaking and the policy is coming?
The challenge would be is you'd have to get the legislature and the administration working together. I think if you really had the right people together, and all of those people really wanted to make Guam a better place to live with better public health and health care, better policing, better education. I think those are the three main structures. Those are the pillars. And if you worked to structure those in such a way that they were all properly funded and everything else was periphery, everything else you could take a hatchet to if you needed to.
Okay.
Well, let's just say a sharp knife, not a hatchet.
But what is that? In saying that, is that even possible? Like, is there?
Of course it's possible.
So there's a system and structure that in government that you know that you can do that as far as like throughput.
No. But it would have to be designed. It would have to be, you'd have to restructure the present system. And you'd have to look at it from the standpoint of, how do I do this without ruining all these people's lives?
Right.
But it's doable. I mean, you can, just like I was involved in leverage buyouts with people, you can do those things, and the people can remain whole. Is there going to be pushback? Of course. There always is, because people get comfortable doing what they always do. But if there's a system to educate people, to retrain people, to financially keep them stable for a period of time that's reasonable, whether that be 13 weeks, 26 weeks, whatever it may be, or in a declining mode, so that you can help them do things. And you'd have to sit and look at the structure in the community and say, what do we need that we don't have? Is there anything? And if we restructure this, how can we push these people into those directions? Are there people that we could early retire? Are there people who, quite frankly, aren't needed? And go back to the GMH parking in 30 slots.
There's some parallels there to what's happening nationally.
Yes.
If you think about it, right? Because what's happening nationally,
it's not very efficient, but yeah.
Not efficient. It's some guy going in and just like, hey, what's on this shelf? And like clearing it out, and everything's on the floor, right? But the shelf's clean now.
Yeah, but you can't do that.
You can't do that, but you have to have the will and the selling power to get the buy-in, because it's hard.
Well, you won't get 100% buy-in. There's no way.
But because it's hard stuff, right? People are that's gonna suck for some people.
But from my experience, most of the suffering that's experienced is self-inflicted, because it's simply not looking at it from the perspective of, this is the overall sense of things going to make the whole better. So I'm working to make the whole better, not just me.
Well, it's hard to make the whole better while you're sending off people onto the ice floe to go away.
Oh, you're not doing that, though. That's a perspective that
but that's the idea.
Will say, oh, well, you're pushing people on an ice floe out to sea. Well, you're not. Yeah. You're not doing that. You're actually intelligently planning to help them change.
Or reskilling.
And reskill them and move them into another direction in their lives. Or let them early retire.
Mm-hmm. The buyout, just like you can take the 16-week, the Doge, right?
There's always but there's always a percentage of those people who are this close to retirement that if you nudge them a little further financially and with some socialization assistance as they moved out of there, I mean, nobody likes. I can tell you from my perspective, I walked away from being in charge of newspapers to nothing.
Yeah.
Is that a shock? Yeah. That's a shock. All of a sudden, you don't have any responsibility. And you went from like sitting on the Eiffel Tower to crawling on the ground, and you go, whoa, what happened?
Not quite, Lee, but the view's not.
But I know, but you've like fallen off the horse.
Sure.
And now you're walking and you're going, this is no fun. I want my horse back. I mean, it really is. And you think about it. So, I mean, I can relate to that if that happened. Mm-hmm. And I could easily explain to people how I felt, Now, am I in this?
But you're the guy selling
exact? Yeah, I'm selling it. but the point is that you do feel that. You do that emotion hits you just like it hits anybody else.
Right. Those are hard decisions, and they're real people behind these decisions.
And then where do you go? What do you do?
Right. You have to
answer. I mean, I've gone into this office for 20 some years or 30 some years, or in my case, 40 years. And then all of a sudden my office is gone.
But that's leadership, right? That's leadership. And that's kind of the thing, is you have to have the stomach for that, right? You have to have the stomach and the will for the hard decisions and push forward, right?
You have to understand that you're capable of almost anything if you set your mind to it.
Right. And the mindset thing is a pervasive thing.
It's huge.
Right. And I had this conversation about that recently. But I think really yes, there are systemic issues that prevent the realization of that mindset, but ultimately,
It's self-inflicted, though.
I don't know about self-inflicted, right? I think just socioeconomic, like sometimes there's some stuff where these systems do keep you down and keep your mindset down.
I'm sorry, what do?
Like the systems, economic systems, there's pervasiveness of like in schools now, it's social promotion, right? So to a degree, you feel entitled. You go through the school system saying, I don't have to do anything and I'm going to get the same advancement as anyone.
And then that carries into the employment.
I see it all the time.
Yeah.
Right. But that's the mindset that you're building.
But you have to break the system.
Exactly. And so that's another thing, right? Can you speak to a little bit about like the evolution of why Dodea pulled out and like remove their kids from the schools and why the school system is so is messed up now? It's and again, it's not really a money problem. It's a systemic and an execution issue, right?
If I go back in time, the Dodea system begged, pleaded, cajoled, tried to get Department of Education to do the right thing on a consistent basis, day in and day out. And I think what happened is DOE suffers from it today. And to some extent, some places greater than others. He said, well, we've always done it this way, so that's what we know, and that's what we're going to do. We're not going to change. We don't have to change because we're the government. And then they fall because the federal government said, okay. And they built their own schools, and they pulled all the kids out.
Right.
And that was self-inflicted by the government of Guam.
Can you be... Like, so specifically, like what was the point of contention between like in
there wasn't any singular point.
I get it. It's just groundswell, like series of issues. Right?
A lot of it was waste financially.
Okay.
And misuse of money and wastefulness and sort of a laissez-faire attitude.
Right. So
I really don't have to do this. They'll still support me. No, never.
I see.
And then all of a sudden somebody goes, the hammer drops, and all your money went away. Whoa, what happened?
And then you have your dependents complaining, hey, I got to be on Guam, and the schools really suck. And,
well, it's not only that. It's just, I remember when, long time ago, when teachers were brought in and given housing and giving incentives and stuff to come out here and teach, and they didn't necessarily, government of Guam didn't necessarily look at the system and say, okay, here's Joe Smith from Oregon who I'm bringing in. Here's Jed Gumatauto from Inarahan. Do they both have the same degree? Do they both have the same capabilities? Do they both have the same teaching attitude? Okay, why don't I treat them the same?
Sure.
And they didn't necessarily have the equivalent all the time, but those who did, if the government system looked at that on an individual basis and treated those local teachers who had the same level of education, the same level of experience, the same kind of attitude that you needed, why couldn't they get the same treatment as the people you were bringing in? Had you done that, I think the school system would be vastly different than it is today.
Wow, that's an interesting point, right? So,
but they didn't.
Effectively,
they treated outsiders better than they treated their own people, and that's the government. Your own government did that to you.
Sure, right. And really,
who do you blame? You can't blame the guys that came in.
No, but ironically,
that's what happens, though.
Ironically, the outsiders do get treated better than locals here in terms of, in terms of subsidies in a lot of ways, in terms of like the benefits, in terms of compensation, right? The people here for the buildup are well compensated, right? They have like large housing allowance.
Well,
they get to go to the
I think there's skill sets involved there that you don't have here.
Right.
I think that's true too. But I think today, more so than 30, 40 years ago, that's not the case. I think people hired locally. Like, for example, I was hired locally.
Yeah.
I walked out of the back door of the Navy as an E5 and walked into the front door of the newspaper. And I took on responsibility. I worked extremely long hours. I studied hard to learn more about what I needed to know to get to where I wanted to be. I understood that you couldn't go from being the print guy to being the circulation director unless you made changes that justified you being in that position, which is what I did. I took the paper from 3,000 circulation to 8,500 in less than a year. And nobody else did that.
Yeah.
So hence, I got promoted. I got paid more. But I worked hard.
And to your point, right? The evolution of that is, at one point, the skill set that you were producing, that you were importing versus that was available locally was at par.
Well, no. Well, there was a point at which I caught somebody stealing 3,000 papers a day. I won't mention any names, but it's a lot of papers.
Yeah.
And they were selling them on street corners.
Really?
Yeah. They were right in front of God and everybody.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. In fact, I got in a fight in the press room.
Great circulation, though.
Yeah,
the
numbers jumped dramatically, or really abruptly, when we started getting paid for what was going out the door. But it's that kind of. I was willing to step on that person's toes to move myself forward.
Okay. Well,
there has to be some of that has to exist, because it was not only wrong. I mean, it was theft, but the point is there was a whole bunch of people in that area who knew that was going on. No one said a word.
And so when I speak to like the outsiders getting the best, right? Like, I'm just, in terms of the opportunities are because they have benefited from systems of education and experience, like you say, that allows them to have the mindset to know that we're in a meritocracy and like I need to be treated like this. And this is what my expectation for myself should be. And this is what my expectation would be for others, right?
That doesn't stop people within the system from taking the initiative to learn and grow.
Fair. That's fair. And again,
there's only so many spots, obviously. So you're competing for, spots in a race, so to speak. It's like a horse race. But somebody has to have the internal desire. I want to move from here to there. What's in between? What do I have to accomplish personally, me, in order to pass these people who are in front of me and acquire that position? What do I personally have to give up in order to do that in time and effort and knowledge?
Right.
What do I have to do? Well, but you have to think that way.
I agree.
There's not a lot of people who think that way.
I agree. And again,
they'll blame you.
But
they won't do it.
Yeah.
But they'll point their finger and say, "Oh, he's favored. He's this. He's that. Or she's
right."
This,
there's always an excuse, and it's never.
Of course, no, it's never. Yeah. Well, rarely. I try to take responsibility for my actions, but
yeah, it's that sense of entitlement that's pervasive, and it has to do with the education system. And there was a pullback by DODEA, and we're kind of here, right? But in terms of schooling, right? Like what has to happen? We just really need to reskill top to bottom, right? The labor force that isn't where it needs to be at all, and part of that is the mindset that's coming through pervasive.
You just read
through
the
system.
It's the mindset, and my uncle did really good in Guam by doing this, and he knew these people, and so I'm going to do what he did so I can get to there, as opposed to things have changed, times have changed. I need to learn a whole different skill set. I'm going to take my time away from my personal time for me, and I'm going to spend it learning that stuff. I'm going to work harder than everybody else around me. I'm going to work smarter than everybody else around me, because this is where I want to go, and that's what I want to accomplish. and I don't care what it costs me. I want to get there. And it's that willingness to sacrifice that makes you move and gets you forward. But not your uncle or your aunt.
No, but there's a transparency that's missing as well, right? There
In what sense?
People don't know what the answers to the questions are consistently, because if you ask 3 people the answer, sometimes
they're different.
Correct, right? And not everybody knows the right answer to the question. Not everyone knows what...
There's not always a right answer either.
Well, there's not always the right answer, but you at least know the structure. Because if I'm not educated and if I don't have the background to know and contextualize the answer that I'm being given, or to even question that what they're telling me could be untrue,
that's a critical point.
Exactly.
To even question.
Right?
And you need to learn to be able to step out, stand on the edge, and ask questions.
Right. And so my thing is, right now, there is zero transparency. It's effectively...
In government.
Correct.
Yes.
It's take my word for it, I swear.
Yeah.
And in terms of transparency, we have these government systems, and behind these systems, all this data is locked up. If you want to get anything out of these systems, the vendors want to charge you to run these reports to give you the answer, which effectively perpetuate their own solution, right? And anything that I model that comes out of my machine, I had the first opportunity to tell you, hey, that's a great pattern. Let me sell you on how we should leverage it and deploy it, right? And it's pervasive, because I would argue that a lot of the systems have been continuously upheld and supported by the same structure. Again, these structures that are in place and in power that have been developed is because they're the only ones who know how to keep it running.
Yes, I don't disagree with you. There's a buy-in on the part of the vast majority of humanity. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And that leads to a big pit. You have to question authority.
Yes.
You have to question systems. You have to demand openness. You have to demand clarity. One of the things that, when we ran newspapers, we drove the government people crazy because we demanded that. That doesn't happen today in the theoretically called news business. It just doesn't happen. There is not FOIA after FOIA after FOIA after FOIA coming to the government. There isn't the lawsuits that get thrown against the government for not responding. There isn't, the fines that don't get levied that they should levy. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that the news organizations, they call themselves news organizations, they're not, in my opinion. They need to be harder, tougher, more persistent than they are. They need to dig deep, and they need to dig hard and fast, and not back away from government officials and not be intimidated by government officials. And that happens all the time.
And it's really hard to do that in
It's
that
sad.
community sometimes, right? Especially if you're not in a position of power or in a position where someone's influence could really affect you, right? There are a certain number of people who wield the power that are large employers, and you may not want to rock the boat because I don't want to be seen as that.
One of the things that worked really well from my perspective was I worked for the largest communications company in North America, and they didn't question me when I asked for money to battle with the government or to get things thrown in the open.
Right.
They just gave me the money. And that's huge. And what you have today is you have privately owned organizations that also have other interests,
right,
that are also tied to government contracts, where pressure can be levied against that arm's length group that can be costly. I mean, I distinctly remember having somebody hit me for $350,000 in losses because of something I did. And And all I did was went to their competitors and says, hey, there's an open door. He's doing this. Why don't you do this? And blew the lid off of it. And corporate headquarters said, that's a lot of money. He said, yeah, we'll get it back. And what you leveraged one retail account against another retail account. Was that remembered? Yeah, for sure. But it was remembered, don't do that to him because he will go after it.
Right. Yeah.
And you have to be willing to do that. You have to be willing to get aggressive.
No, you always have to be able to sever the relationship. You always have to be willing to walk away.
Yeah.
Right. That's really the bottom line. Yeah. And that's ultimately.
And it's positioning yourself to be able to do that.
Correct. That's it. You got to put yourself in the position where you can walk away.
You really have to own the niche.
Yeah. That's easier said than done.
I know it's easier said than done, but you really have to own the niche.
So now that we've talked a little bit about like thought and theory, right? You're in the trenches with tourism, right?
No,
well,
I'm not.
Okay, so you're not, right? No. But you have a business that leverages one of Guam's natural resources, right? The ocean, right? You're running MDA,
right?
Own operate,
yep.
Right? And that business is unaffected, but it's affected by the continuous military presence because that's a big part of your customer base.
It is,
right? Tell me about what you think of Guam's economy moving forward as a business. Can we continue to stand on tourism as a third leg? What needs to happen economically to diversify so things get better?
So you said a third leg. What are the other two?
Well, the government and construction, right?
The people who take my tax money?
Yeah.
I don't look at that as a leg. I look at it as a...
Well, what are our legs, Lee?
Well, I think right now you have military and you have tourism. Okay. Those are the two legs. And actually, if you go back...
We have real estate.
Historically. Well, okay. It's a short leg.
Banking.
Yeah, but they're short.
$1 billion.
Those support the main legs.
Sure.
They're pieces of the big puzzle.
Okay.
I think if we really want to grow the economy, we got to get the government out of things. The less government we have, the better off we'll be, because the less government we have, the less taxes we need to pay, mm-hmm. and small businesses can grow more rapidly. I think that reality from a tourism standpoint, I mean, MDA really never was deeply engaged in the tourism industry except right at its outset. Mm-hmm. Long time ago, way before I ever owned it. It started out as a tourist organization, and then it gradually transferred into more and more local and more military customers. And now I would say we're probably 96% local and military.
Are you a member of the Chamber of Commerce?
I am.
How many votes do you have?
How many votes do I have? Two.
Okay. Just getting scale.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just not a lot. I'm a member of AVB too.
No, but that's a good business that's perpetuated at that level for at least 20 years.
Oh, more than that. We're more than 50 years. We're doing our 50th anniversary with PADI, this Professional Association of Dive Instructors, December 13th at the museum.
Oh, awesome.
And we're also celebrating the fact that we have certified 100,000 divers in that period of time,
right?
Which is basically unheard of. The president of PADI's coming out, the people from School of Pro are coming out. There's a bunch of people coming out. And we have a gathering. About 150 people will be there. But we're going to give away awards and do some things like that with people. I mean, it's a big thing. I mean, you've been in business 50 years with one credentialing organization, mm-hmm. and certified 100,000 people in a place this small.
That's amazing. That really is. That's really awesome. 100,000 people.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah.
It really is. It is amazing.
But so frankly, that's a small business at that level that has been consistent over time. And there's not just one of you, right? There's at least 3 operators right now.
Well, it depends how you define it.
Fair.
I think we're
Well, there's acts. There's like those guys are like,
Yeah, they're there.
sell gear and stuff like that.
Yeah, but I think from a retail and a training standpoint, I don't think there's anybody who comes anywhere close to us.
Fair.
And there have been people who have come and gone over the years, over the time. And I think that's a good indicator for how well-run small businesses can succeed on Guam.
Right.
I mean, it really is.
100,000 people.
If you have 100,000 people, that you can certify, and that. But I think from a small business standpoint, it's a good example of what can happen with small business.
Right.
It really can, if it's run efficiently, and people, and you're in the right place at the right time with the right product.
But in terms of getting government out, right? Are you speaking more towards like third-party certification?
I'm sorry, by getting
government out. You say less government, right? In terms of perpetuating an economic.
I don't think you need as much government interference in what you do as a private business.
Mm-hmm. Well, like what?
I think what happens is government gets overly involved so that people who are elected into public office can feather their nest and build it into something that it doesn't need to be. It needs to be smaller, and they build it bigger. And then they use the dollars from small businesses and large businesses to fund their wish list of what they'd like to see expanded. Mm-hmm. And if you look at, there's an enormous number of boards and commissions that don't need to be there.
Right.
And they get paid. And half the time, they don't meet. I mean, it's really absurd. It is. And government is just not efficient. It is just not efficient. There's no incentive for government to be efficient.
Well, to a degree, government's supposed to be inefficient because it's supposed to fill the gap. But I understand what you're saying relative to...
I don't think it's supposed to be inefficient.
Okay.
I think it can be efficient. Government can be efficient. I mean, it may not be efficient as private enterprise, but it can be efficient. Right. A lot more efficient than it is.
Oh, for sure.
And a lot less wasteful than it is.
No, for sure. Like, for the...
I mean, whatever happened to all the golf carts they bought after COVID?
I don't know.
I don't either, but I haven't seen
They're in a GSA warehouse.
Huh?
They're in a GSA.
I have no idea where they're at. But that's just one example of the kind of craziness that goes on.
Yeah. No, I agree. So I hear what you're saying. It's just like, it's really just, it's will, right? And mindset in a lot of different ways. Like we top to bottom, at the leadership level, at the voter level, we have to decide we're mad as hell. We're not going to take it anymore, essentially.
Well, the problem is that if you look at how many people are voting.
Yes, right? That's it, right? The turnout is horrible. Like, again,
you have less than, what is it, 60%?
No, it's less than that.
No, I mean, total registered.
Yeah, 60.
Of you have, like, say, for 100 voters who are capable of voting, you only have like 60 who are actually saying, I'm going to register to vote. Mm-hmm. And then you have an even smaller number of those 60 who said they're registered to vote who will actually come out and vote.
Right.
And so you may have like 30% of the people putting in everybody in office.
Because no one believes that anything is going to change by them casting a ballot. And that's true, because it won't. Because what you just modeled...
I think you're wrong. I think it will make a difference if people come out and cast a ballot. If people get off their dead butts and get out there and say, I've had enough of this. I want a better education system. I want a better hospital. I want better public health. I want better protection by the police. I want better roads. I don't want to have people 6 months later tell me I got whatever it was, Dildren or Daldron or whatever it was in my water. I mean, it's that kind of stuff where people have to just get angry and say, that's it, I'm done.
Right, but then
we're going to fix it.
But again, you get angry and you say it's done, right? But what's informing the policy that's driving the decision? Because what you just said here, right, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that nothing that is going to progress forward under the current system is going to change anything. right? Because effectively the structures, the legislative structure that's in place makes it impossible for any of the elected leaders to really like move forward, because the legislature is the issue, right? If I'm the governor and I want to push legislation, I have to deal with the legislative body. If I'm not aligned with them in some way or the other, then I'm not going to be effective on the policy side. It's the same issue that the president has.
If you district the legislature,
right, you have
that'll
to
be
do
a
that.
huge step in the right direction.
But voting
because
for
then they're responsible to a fixed number of people.
right, but voting for one candidate for governor or not, if that's not on the table, is not going to make a difference.
I'm sorry, back up.
Voting for anything is not going to make a difference if you don't create that level of accountability. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
that's what I'm understanding.
That has to have, the accountability has to be there. And you won't get the accountability in the legislature unless you district them.
Right. And
period.
So it
because
does,
they can all walk away and say, well, oh, I have this massive responsibility for the whole island. No, you don't.
and so I would say, like, if you're going to support somebody for office, they would have to be behind that districting,
Is it?
right? Or you would argue that they're trying to escape accountability, right?
Well, not only that, how many people have been in the legislature for how long?
Right. And so this is the data point where we say, this is the thing, right? Fix this, fix the districting.
Do two things. Get a part-time legislature and district it.
Okay. And then, so anything on the table, this election, you're saying should have that in place, or what's the point?
And you can't look to the legislature to do that. That has to be something that is done by a private group of people who get all the signatures that are needed, get it on the ballot so that people can go in and vote to make the change. The senators who are in charge will never make that change.
Right. And I remember
it takes power from them.
Legislation by initiative. There it is.
Yeah, that's right.
I remembered it.
Yeah, it's a legislative initiative. You're right.
Failed me, but I remembered it.
Yeah. No, you were thinking of it. I was thinking of it, and neither one of us, and you came up with it. So that's good.
But yeah, so that is how I kind of want to like bring everything to like that's where we've arrived at that point, right? And just in terms of everything, it's the absence of accountability and the perpetuation of existing policies where that accountability has been absent, that has allowed the systems to get to the place where we are, allowed these mindsets to perpetuate to the point where, you can't bring people in, you can't keep people here. The tires are falling off to a degree, right? Because we're running out of people to tighten the bolts.
Yeah, there's oil dripping under the pan.
Exactly. So if you want to fix it, you have to change the one thing that seems to be the limiting factor, and that is this districting issue. Am I correct?
I think that would make a huge change.
Yes. I think that would be...
I think it's one thing that would probably initiate more change than anything else.
Agreed. Well, in my fantasy, just in my...
No, I think it would, because it did lay responsibility directly on the shoulders of people who get elected.
But I love the think tank. Right. I think that's something that we should do. Like the public policy people at UOG, they came up with a paper as to how to solve housing. Hey, if you're out there, we've been asking you to come on, but and talk policy. Right. But we encourage the university. They have a great data science program. They're doing work. Right. Because,
generally they're too liberal, but that's okay.
Well, it doesn't, the university is supposed to be, it's like, what is that quote? When I was young, if you're young and you're not a Democrat, you don't have a heart. And if you're old and you're not a Republican, you don't have a brain. Right? Yeah, to a degree. It's because as you age, right, you understand, like, you have a heart, but then there's accountability there. There's ownership. There's mindset, right? You did this to yourself to a degree, right? It's like, because I had to struggle through this and I'm here. And now I know you can do it because I did. I'm not
have to learn to cultivate your own.
Right. Yeah. So you got to do that, right? And so that's what's missing. And, circle back to the first podcast, that one of the first, this guy, Bill Bernardo, right? One of the things he talked about is just the pervasiveness of that mindset that just like, I can't do this, right? Or I need someone else to help me with this. No, you don't.
You won't do it.
Yeah.
There's a difference.
That's it. You make the decision. And in making the decision, you talk about machines, right? Talk about like the difference between AI and humans, right? And humans are crazy. They'll do crazy stuff that a machine wouldn't even conceptualize, right? I'll run at a wall and like, I'll see if I bounce off it or I'm going to break through it, right? I don't know. It may not be rational thought, But then someone else who is rational may see me bounce off and say, hey, that wall kind of chinked. Let me try that out, right?
Yeah.
And through you crack crazy ideas, right? That's how innovation happens. That's how we move forward. And that's why, quite frankly, we're better than the machines, right? In a lot of different ways. Don't tell the machines I said that.
But we are. We can unplug them.
Yeah, for now. But anyways, but that's it, right? It's a mindset and determination, and this is an issue where I think we can probably all get behind and agree. This is something that's really important, this districting thing, because who are you accountable if you're not accountable to anybody? Washington, you see, like, these guys are like accountable to districts, and it's still pervasive. And there's still all this like structure and systems, the lobby and the political. We don't have all that stuff, but we still have the issues that are pervasive there. It's effectively special interest.
If we could district the legislature, it would make a dramatic change.
And not just for Guam, but even for your district. You think about it.
Oh, right? No, it would.
Schools would be better.
But you'd hold somebody responsible.
Yes. And they could solve those problems.
Try to not mow your own lawn and see what happens.
Agreed. And every little district can take care of the things in their own little way, but we can have overarching policy that works.
You have to learn to cultivate your own garden.
Right. So I would say to our candidates, this is what we're getting behind, right? Just in terms of like the discussion. You talk about these corporate ownership of these media structures, but that's the thing. Someone can get on YouTube and just spout off of the mouth, and if they're speaking the truth, people are going to find it.
In 2007, when I moved to Hawaii, they asked me at Honolulu Rotary Club meeting to talk about what's happening in the news business. And at that event, I explained to them that it's going to go all digital and it'll be individual thought. And it won't necessarily attach itself to fact. Because you'll be able to sit behind your computer in your jockey shorts with a Budweiser in your hand and type anything you want and claim, you have a great picture of yourself in a coat and tie.
Right.
I knew a reporter who was an excellent reporter for USA Today, who, when the Desert Wars started, he was writing stories, and I thought he was in the desert. He was in New York in an apartment doing other people's writing.
Ouch.
And he got canned.
Yeah.
And no one hired him after that.
Yeah.
But he was sitting behind a computer, taking other people's work, formulating into what he had a reputation for type of writing. And people believed until they caught him doing it. And you see that today all the time. And AI just compounds it.
Yeah. Oh,
it makes people who aren't competent looking.
Well, thank God for that. It's scary for that too, in some ways, shapes or form.
Well, that's crazy because, you don't really know what AI is, and not really. And it is for sure misused.
Yeah. Lee.
And it's smart enough to go on its own.
Lee, I really appreciate your time here with me today. It's been an education, and I really kind of like where our conversation evolves and the place that we kind of arrived at, because it really does make sense just in terms of that, right? Just accountability, transparency, and just really...
That's critical to success.
Well, I thank you for joining us on Data Points, and I really look forward to your continuing editorials and in the various media outlets. I always like to hear your perspective, and maybe I have to take a refresher class at MD. I got certified when I was 17 years old, but
go back and get a refresher before you jump in the water. I don't want to lose you.
Right on, yeah. Well, I'll see you. Maybe I'll see you out there on the water. But in the meantime, I appreciate you coming on. Thanks, Lee.
Thank you.